join the meeting this evening and watching live elsewhere and on Facebook. To ensure that this meeting runs as smoothly as possible, all participants will be muted and can only be unmuted by the Town Clerk on my instruction. Those councillors wishing to or if you click on participants at the side of the screen, you'll see the option to raise a virtual hand. The Town Clerk will then assist me with the order of debate as we consider tonight's agenda items. I'm sure this will not be the case, but should there be any disruption to the meeting, the individual will be warned once by myself, and if the disruption continues, I will ask the Town Clerk to remove them from the meeting. Those being removed will not be permitted to re-enter. Virtual meetings will be recorded and live streamed, and therefore, should you not wish for your image to be recorded, please turn your camera off now. I'd now like to begin the meeting starting with number 6 on the information page on the agenda regarding recording of this meeting, which is being recorded. Public participation. Members of the public are given an opportunity to address councillors present at this meeting regarding agenda items at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public will also be given an opportunity to discuss town council activities not on the current agenda after the close of the meeting. The comments of members of the public and electors of the parish who speak before the start of the meeting or following the close of the meeting will not form part of the minutes of the meeting. So welcome to our member of the public. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask before we begin?
It's just taking a while to unmute.
Sorry. No, thank you. And I'm keeping my picture off today as well. I'll just listen in. I don't want to display it to everybody else.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Okay, so I shall commence with the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Just an apology received from Councillor Woods, Chairman. I know that Councillors James and Tamlin were both expecting to be here, so hopefully they'll be able to join at some point.
Okay, thank you. Do we all accept the apologies from Councillor Woods, please? Okay, thank you. So moving on then, item number 2, agreement of the agenda between parts 1 and part 2. As I see it, we don't have a part 2. So we can move on then to declarations of interest, so to declare any disclosable interest relating to forthcoming items of business, if any. Councillor Dawson, would you like to speak? Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself then. Yeah, regarding item 19, through work, I'm a regular hirer of the facilities, so I've asked Andrew to pop me into a waiting room for the discussion and any votes or anything.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Dawson. Can we all raise a hand to accept Councillor Dawson's declaration? Thank you. Andrew, will you be able to let Councillor Dawson into the waiting room at the appropriate time?
Yeah, we have had a practice run and it will be possible.
Thank you. Councillor Wrigley, did you have a... Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to declare that I am an irregular hirer of meeting rooms in the Manor House, but I would ask for approval to speak on the item and not to be removed.
To speak and not vote? Or?
Well, I don't think I'm not a massive hirer of it. It's not going to make any significant difference. I want to put it on record. I do hire meeting rooms, but for meetings, but I would like permission to speak and vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Could you raise a hand, please, if you're happy for Councillor Wrigley to remain in and to speak and vote? Please raise a hand.
Chairman, if I may, there's no decision on that. That's obviously down to Councillor Wrigley if that's what the course of action he wishes to take. But he's put his interest on record by mentioning that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lowther, did you wish to speak?
Yes. Councillor Mary Lowther. I'm treasurer of one group who actually uses the manor and secretary of another group that uses the manor, Dawlish Community Transport and Dawlish Twinning Association. So I presume, I don't know, Andrew, I'll leave that to you to let me know whether I should.
Councillor Lowther, I would suggest that you probably do have a similar interest such as Councillor Dawson, so it may be pertinent if you were to leave the meeting virtually for that item.
Right, so you just want me to get up and walk out?
I'll do that for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations, or can we move on to item number 4, please? Okay, thank you. Dispensations.
Oh, sorry, Chairman, I believe Councillor Prowse is indicating to speak.
Yes, Councillor Prowse, go ahead, please.
Sorry to be a pain, Andrew, but I've got myself on I'm looking at the agenda on my iPad, and it's gone into Google, and I can't get it back to the meeting. I don't quite know how to do that. Have you any ideas?
I would, if you go on to, I think it's Safari at the bottom, it's probably best to navigate to our website and access the agenda that way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll carry on with item number 4, dispensations.
None received, Chairman.
Sorry?
Sorry, none received, jumping the gun there.
All right, okay. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. So item number 5 then, minutes. To approve, sign and adopt the minutes of the Town Council meetings held on the 4th of March and on the 6th of May this year. So we've had the revised copy of the minutes, the draft minutes for approval from the 6th of May sent through to us by email this evening. Please can I ask for, first of all, for councillors to raise a hand for approving the minutes of the 4th of March. All in approval, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman, that's unanimous.
Excellent, thank you. And then please for all councillors in favour of approving the minutes of the draft minutes of the meeting of the 6th of May, which were slightly amended and sent through by the Town Clerk this evening by email. All those in favour of approving...
Sorry, just to interject, we've got a couple of councillors wishing to speak. Okay.
Councillor Mary Lowther, please go ahead.
It was just a query on number 211. It was grant applications, and it has just got Westcliff School or Westcliff Gardens, and I feel that should be a little bit more explicit. Was it Westcliff School Gardens? Because it is a formal thing, the minutes. It's all gone quiet.
Yola, are you able to advise?
Well, not without going back and checking. Looks like Councillor Dawson might be able to.
Oh, bear with me.
Councillor Dawson, please go ahead.
The project is called Westcliff Community Garden.
Right, well then, you know, I feel that's what it should say. Because just Westcliff Gardens, it means really nothing. I mean, could be going to everybody's garden on Westcliff Road. So could we insert community, please?
Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lowther.
And it's also we seem to have two 214s. Have we altered that to?
We do have 214s, so we'll make a slight correction. Right. Should they be approved?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So all in favour of approving them with those 2 additional changes, please raise your hand. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Sorry, is Councillor Moorhood wishing to speak?
Yes, Councillor Moorhood, go ahead.
Bear with me, Councillor Moorhood, it's unmuting. Yeah.
Subject to the fact that we've all received the latest amendment from the clerk about item which is actually 215, the trees in the Manor Garden.
Yes, that I believe is what the chairman was referring to.
Yes.
So there's two amendments. There's the one to that in the resolution, and there's the one to the numbering in the agenda.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the minutes. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that got passed then. We all voted to accept the amended and with the additional amendments. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on then to item number, where are we? Item number 6. Minutes of committees for adoption. To receive the minutes of the planning committee meeting, which was held on the 19th of March, please. Chair of Planning, would you like to? Would you like to present them for adoption?
Yeah, sorry, I was waiting for it to clear. Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to present the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 19th of March for acceptance. Thank
you, Councillor Goodman-Bradbury. Do we have a second for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour of adopting those minutes, please raise a hand. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So now moving on then to the Town Clerk's report. Please go ahead, please, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The Helping Dawlish relief effort continues. We've had really good feedback on our fish and chip supper that's been doing the rounds over the last few fortnights. Some really good feedback there on how grateful people have been, and the intention was to have it as a pick-me-up, and I think it's certainly done that for the recipients. So that's a really good thing. We're also noticing a slowing in need of food parcels, which appears to be following the trend regionally, although we do have some days where we do get a flurry of requests, but on the whole we do seem to now see a slowing of demand. However, we're not resting on our laurels, and we are well aware that a second spike may come in the next few months, and the main thing is that we've got the groundwork in place should it need to ramp up again, so we'll be able to respond to anything should that happen. In terms of PPE for the Town Council offices, we've now taken delivery of a number of hand sanitising dispensers and gels, a 2-metre distance map for the reception area, which we'll need to rejig to ensure people don't go within the 2-metre distance. We've also got a mobile hand sanitising station that can be positioned anywhere in the building. The works to install the hand sanitisers have been programmed for the end of June, and we're looking at a likely reopening of the building probably the early to mid-July, hopefully with everything going okay. The Town Council offices may open slightly earlier to the public, given that the Town Council staff are behind a screen, and we can close the first foyer off to the rest of the building, but we'll have to see how that goes. The Prime Minister tonight in his briefing did mention the possibility of reducing the 2-metre rule, which is good after we've purchased all the items. But this does confirm information we've had from other sources, so we're not quite sure how soon that will be, but it's obviously on the radar at the moment. Whether it will go down to 1.5 metres or down to 1, we don't know as yet. DALC have created a working group in conjunction with the district councils in Devon and the county council, looking at the reinvigoration of high streets following this crisis, and the town and parish reps are Newton Abbot Town Council Clerk Phil Rowe and Exmouth Town Council Clerk Lisa Bowman. They wanted an inland town council and a coastal town council. I understand they met earlier this week, but I've not had any feedback or minutes on that yet. So once I'm in receipt of that, I'll see if that can be shared, and we'll send that around. In terms of the roads report or the audit that we did some time ago, I've now had quite a comprehensive reply from the neighbourhood highways officer for Dawlish. It came in after the agenda was published, so I haven't been able to circulate it with this agenda. I do intend to circulate it by email to you all, and we'll then have something on the July agenda, because no doubt we'll be able to go back and ask for further clarification before that point. So that will be an item on the agenda for July. We've also had some comments regards the inevitable relaxing of restrictions now sees many people coming to Dawlish and many coastal tourist towns, and a lot of them drinking alcohol in and about the town. Of course, we did have the PSPO, which lapsed in 2019, wasn't renewed by the district council. Having made inquiries of them, they don't have any plans at present to reintroduce this. To do so, it would require quite extensive consultation and require a burden to be proved that there's a persistent or continuing problem, which, given the short space of time that these restrictions have been eased, that it probably doesn't meet the definition of persistent and continuing, nor have we had many reports of antisocial behaviour because of drinking, whether there's been complaints because there's been so many people mixing and not observing the 2 metre distance rule. That's another matter. But of course, our message is, if people are concerned that people are meeting in larger groups than the 6 as advised by the government, people should contact 101, as the police do have the power to disperse. So that is the message at the moment. And that's all for now, Chairman, and no doubt there'll be further comments in the reports later on in the agenda.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. That was all very interesting. Councillor Main, I see you've got your hand raised for a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
You are.
Thank you. Going back to the item you've just covered now, Andrew, the drinking. I don't know if you're aware that about 3 weeks ago, when lockdown was eased slightly, Dawlish One became a hub of activity because there was a public house here that was allowed to sell alcohol, which sold alcohol. Whether it was allowed to or not, I don't know. They have to reapply for their outdoor license, and that's coming up within the next couple of days. I felt then, and I still feel now, that this caused a lot of problems at the Warren. Not so much antisocial behaviour, but they were actually causing people to congregate. And I'm wondering whether now, maybe we've only got a day or two to do it, whether if everybody's in, everybody thinks it's a good idea, to object to the application that is coming up before licensing again in the next couple of days. I'd like people's opinions on this.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Thank you. I can see Councillor Terry Lowther and Councillor Prowse have got their hands raised as well. As these, do you have questions? Please go ahead. Councillor Prowse first.
Thank you. Can I ask through you, Chair, to Councillor Main, this application to renew their outdoor licence, is it for the foreseeable future to run concurrently with the rest of their licence? Are you asking us to say we don't want an outdoor licence while we're in the difficult position we're in at the moment, or do you just want them to have an outdoor licence? I am not certain, having sat on licensing myself, whether we can do this. Possibly we could say not for 6 months, but I don't know how licensing would work in this particular way. It is very possible that Councillor Lowther, Terry Lowther, as an ex-magistrate, might well know the answer to this.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse. Thank you. Councillor Main, do you want to respond to Councillor Prowse first, and then?
Yes, yes, I do. I think I've got no objection to them having an outdoor licence in normal times. This isn't normal times. They've got they did have a lot of tables and chairs out there which have been removed. So they were actually serving takeaway alcohol, which people were taking away and drinking and sitting down on the grass and areas and drinking it. But I'm under the impression that the Warren has got a drinking, it's like a dry area anyway. I don't think there's allowed to be alcohol walked around with. We've got the powers to stop it. But I think that maybe for 6 months or until the lockdown is eased and pubs can open, we could object to it until then.
Thank you, Councillor Main.
May I just come in at this point?
Please do.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, this item isn't on the agenda for consideration, so you can't make a decision during this meeting. I've just looked on the District Council's website, and they did indeed post the notice on the 22nd of May that the Boathouse is applying for the sale of alcohol in open plastic containers for consumption off the premises, only for a pre-existing point of sale Monday to Sunday, 10 AM to midnight. Any person wishing to make representations may do so in writing by the 8th of June, which is Monday. Now, we weren't aware of that, and I know from my days clerking licensing meetings, they only write to people within the immediate vicinity of the applicant's address. So that's why us as a council wouldn't have been informed like we are with planning applications. This may be something we can do under delegated authority in consultation with the mayor and deputy mayor, and perhaps I can do it that way. That will probably get us around the fact that we can't do anything in this meeting. So if I'm getting the sense from you all that you're wishing to object, then perhaps we can have a conversation by email from tomorrow.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Councillor Lowther, did you wish to speak
Yes,
at something first before we go to ask people's opinions on how we go for this? Councillor Lowther, please go ahead.
Yes, I mean, as far as the general questions that Councillor Main raised about whether it should be brought to the attention of the meeting, I think it certainly should. If there's some evidence or some suspicion that they were actually breaking the law, or breaking the guidelines at least, it should be brought to the attention of the licensing committee. Yeah, I was a licensing magistrate many years ago too. And in a situation like this, it was always a general policy to consult the police to take their view as to what their advice would be in a situation like that. And I think we ought to do that. Certainly have a look at the what you can do with the clock, but consult the police before.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flowers, Councillor Wrigley, do you have something to say? Or yes, Councillor Flowers, go ahead.
As an ex-publican for many years, I feel that I will have to abstain from the rest of this discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wrigley, you had something to say.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think given the timescales and given the position and given the where we are, I think it would, and it's not on the agenda for tonight, I think it would be inappropriate for the council to send in a response, but I think all those councillors who feel strongly one way or the other should send in their individual responses to the licensing committee, and that will often carry more weight than actually having the council sending a single response in, to have multiple responses through. So I would suggest at this point it's up to individual councillors to make their points in a letter to the licensing committee.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Councillor Taylor, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, perhaps Councillor Main would be able to forward the communication that she's had, unless our clerk is able to circulate a suitable response form. I'm concerned, particularly after the last weekend, where we saw an amount of rubbish being left on our beaches and open spaces. If we're allowing plastic containers to be taken off site. It doesn't specify it specifically doesn't mention where this drinking is going to be taking place, but you can guess where it's going to be taking place and where a lot of litter is going to end up, and no way of proving where it would have come from. So I have serious reservations about this. I think Councillor Wrigley's suggestion that we all write in individually is a good one, but I also feel that if collectively we agree that we should certainly be making a representation as best we can from the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, and I do agree with you. So, do other councillors wish to speak? I can see Councillor.
I believe Councillor Moorhood was next, Chairman.
Right, go ahead then, Councillor Moorhood.
Oh, when it decides to unmute.
Go ahead.
Oh. Val, sorry, I think you muted yourself, unmuted just as I was unmuting you.
There we go.
There we go.
I refer to what the clerk said. It's not an agenda item, but it is something obviously of concern. It's a government guidance about the groups congregating and the danger, and especially down there because we have people coming from all over the country now, although the rain might subdue everything. I feel that before we all take the action, or in addition to the action that Councillors Wrigley and Taylor are suggesting, we first ask our local beat manager to assess the situation, and if they think there is a problem, then we can each individually take it forward, and if it increases, we can bring it to the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Councillor Linda Pedrick, I saw you had your hand up, and Councillor Mary Lowther.
I have got a copy of the notice. A team had asked me to go and make sure it was on the boathouse, but I see you've sent it, Andrew.
Yes, I just sent it to all councillors.
Yeah. But I do agree with Councillor Main that there's nothing wrong with the Dawlish Town Council writing and expressing their concern, and you doing it under delegated powers, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Pedrick. Councillor Mary Lowther, did you wish to say something, or was your hand in the air? Do you want to go ahead?
Thank you. I am just suggesting that we ask the clerk to actually investigate, for a better term, the bylaw that Councillor Main mentioned of an alcohol-free area at Dawlish Warren, because that would cut out, if that is the case, well then there is no problem. They shouldn't get a licence to provide it. Even the boathouse, giving it in plastic sealed containers, they are still drinking alcohol on the Warren. So that's my suggestion, that we ask the clerk to investigate whether there is a bylaw connected with Dawlish Warren. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowther. Andrew, do you wish to?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to say there is a designation order already in place on the Warren itself that came in 2004, and that is a prohibition of drinking on the beach itself, but obviously this doesn't extend to business areas.
Right.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Main, I see you've had your hand raised for quite a while. Please go ahead.
Just to say that, to clarify things a little bit, when this first happened, the business was actually stopped from trading because the police went there, and I believe environmental health, and they were stopped for trading under the grounds of inciting social gatherings. And it is one of the few places that you can actually go and get alcohol and sit outside and have. They've got no table and chairs that people are allowed to use now, so people are naturally going to walk around with a pint in their hands and sit on the grass, sit on the beach. And I think for this short period that we're going through now, hopefully it is a short period, I think for the next few months, then we should object to it. And I think it should, forget whether we've got a bylaw or not, that's, which we have, that's got nothing at all to do with it. I don't think we should be inciting people to come down here in groups and drink. And that's my personal opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Main. So we've had your proposal. Is it that we make a statement as a town council, and we've had Councillor Taylor said something very similar, that we can object as individual councillors, but also to make a statement as Dawlish Town Council. Do councillors wish to raise a hand to confirm that they're happy with that, that they approve that? Do councillors please raise a hand if you wish to go ahead with that?
What's the proposal,
well,
please?
Chairman, if I may, Chairman,
We can't do that.
there's no need to take any form of vote now on potential delegated decisions. I can do that tomorrow in conjunction with yourself and the Deputy Mayor, and then circulate that more widely to members once we know the grounds for objecting, because you do have to be quite specific for licensing applications. So I'm happy to word that tomorrow and send it to you and Councillor Moorhood in the first instance, and then once agreed, I can circulate that more widely. But there's no need to make any vote now on that.
Okay, thank you. So I'll leave it with you then. Thank you. Okay, so any other comments in response to our town clerk's report before we move on? Okay.
Chairman, if I can just have one more bit of good news, which has just been sent to me. The Helping Dawlish donation level now stands at £6,000 in the region of. So the people of Dawlish are obviously very generous, which is great.
Wow, that's excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Moorhood, before we move on to the next item. Do you wish to speak?
I'm sorry, Chairman, I'm having trouble unmuting Councillor Moorhood for some reason. Councillor Moorhood, could you try unmuting yourself?
Okay, yes. That is very, very encouraging to hear. Obviously, without actually indicating who. Is this coming from a mix of businesses and ordinary residents, or any sort of predominant?
I'll just defer to my esteemed colleague. Bear with me 1 second.
If I may, majority has come from individuals. We have had groups such as Holcombe Residents Association, Dawlish Christian Fellowship, Dawlish Water Rotary donate money, but it has to be said our largest individual, our largest donation in itself came from an individual, and people have contributed anything from £10 up to £2,500.
Amazing.
That's really good news. Thank you.
If I just might add that excludes the in-kind donations. For example, we're now allowed to reveal publicly that smugglers have been helping us with preparation of fresh food deliveries every week, and so they give their actual premises and their staff time as a donation, which is not mentioned in any figures.
That's really amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so now moving on to the next item on the agenda. So it's my report as Mayor. Okay, so since our first virtual meeting in May, it has been an unusual month. I celebrated VE Day by decorating my road with homemade bunting and delivered cream cheese to my neighbours in the afternoon. With the easing of the lockdown, we must remember to still be on high alert and to consciously maintain 2-metre social distancing. A big thank you goes to all our local shopkeepers and businesses who have adapted their premises in order to protect both the public and their staff, and we can look forward to their opening in a couple of weeks' time. In this National Volunteers Week, I'd like to say thank you and to recognise the commitment and dedication of volunteers in all walks of life. Especially during this pandemic time, the work of volunteers is truly amazing and special. Thank you to every one of you for helping Dawlish reach out. Thank you to everyone who gives their time, care and compassion to make our town a community. Let's celebrate the work of each and everyone who volunteers to help. We have so far received over 30 entries for the first ever virtual Dawlish in Bloom lockdown garden competition, and these will be judged by members of Dawlish Garden Society over the next couple of weeks. And a big thank you to all who are giving their time looking out for neighbours and volunteering in our community here in Dawlish. We can get through this. Okay, so now moving on to the County Councillor's report, please. Has Councillor Clatworthy sent one in?
Sorry, Chairman.
Has a report been received from Councillor Clatworthy?
Yes, it was circulated Monday.
Okay.
Has anybody received that? It was quite full. There was about 10, 12 points.
Okay, thank you. I'll have another search in my inbox. Well, thank you.
Chairman, I'm happy to read it out if that would help.
Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. A brief report from my last report in May. I mentioned in my last report that the lights on Puffin Crossing at Brookdale Terrace were going to be replaced with LED lights and work programme to start on 1st of June. Regarding the Link Road, I've been told there is a meeting with Persimmon this week regarding the draft legal agreements, and it is hoped they will be in place later in the summer, and the planning application will then hopefully be made in the autumn. The application will only be in respect of the bridge, as Persimmon will be building the road to the Sainsbury's roundabout. The planning application for the further development at Orchard Manor School has been submitted to TDC and is scheduled to be considered at the Development Management meeting on the 15th of July. Regarding the cycle path at Warren Road and Exeter Road, I have been told that slow signs are to be marked on the pavements and a safety audit is to be undertaken at Dawlish Warren. Life expectancy in Dawlish is 81.4 years according to the primary care mortality data for 2020. The highest in Devon is Otter Valley Division at 85 years and the lowest Ilfracombe at 78.9 years. With regard to grants from the locality budget, I am supporting 9 grants to date this year. And finally, I understand the outturn for the county revenue budget will now be going to the July Cabinet meeting. That's all, Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you for reading that out. Thank you. Councillor Wrigley, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have a... Okay. Okay, thank you. So now moving on to item 12, then district councillors' reports. Do we have any district councillors wishing to make their reports? Yes, Councillor Pederick and then Councillor Wrigley, Councillor Taylor. Please go ahead.
All right, just a sec. I did send it in, but I'm now reading it off the phone, so you'll have to bear with me. I've been forwarding information that I've received to all councillors to try and make sure that councillors are kept informed about what is happening within Teambridge and get updated information that I think councillors may find interesting, especially councillors that have had to shield and are not able to go out of the house. I've attended meetings of the committees that I am a member of via Zoom. I've received several complaints about the car park at the Warren being used by people racing bikes and cars around the car park. I've informed Teambridge and they've notified the car park officer, the antisocial behaviour officer and the local police. It has been suggested that it may be useful to have CCTV at the end of the tunnel leading into the car park. I will follow this up and hopefully something can be done to stop this happening. I have been emailed by a few businesses asking me various questions about when they can open and how they can do it safely. A few cafes have had questions about the takeaway service that they can provide, which I've followed up with Timbridge. A few charities have contacted me about the issues they faced during the pandemic. I have referred them to the necessary officers at Timbridge who can help them through their issues. I'm finding that a lot of people have a lot of anxieties as we start to ease out of this pandemic, and they are very worried about the possibility of having a second spike. People are worried that visitors are coming down, and it is worrying them what the consequences might be. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pederick. Councillor Wrigley, you had your hand up next, I think, and then Councillor Taylor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, like Councillor Pederick, I've been having a lot of communications from people about various issues, and there has been concern. There are three things I'd just like to bring to people's attention. We had an NHS briefing a few days ago. I'm sorry, I can't determine when it was, how long ago. Time seems to have changed its proportions, which was talking about the preparations and the state of the NHS within Devon. It was extremely useful, and if councillors missed that, it'll be worthwhile looking out for the next one. They are concerned about the possibility of a second wave, certainly down here in Devon, because we've so far come off very lightly in the pandemic to date. So you will see that things like the Nightingale Hospital in Exeter are still going ahead, and they are ensuring that they are ready in case a second wave were to hit us. So they are looking out for that and keeping an eye for that. We will have all attended the Network Rail briefing that Dawlish Town Council had. There was a briefing for the Teambridge Planning Committee this week, and their application will be being submitted shortly. So please keep an eye out for that. Comments are now being taken by Network Rail on their website. I think they had a webinar today. Was it tomorrow? I'm not entirely sure. I didn't catch up with when it was. It's been a busy day. And finally, there was a lot of problems last weekend with the number of people that came down over the area. Not as bad here in Dawlish, from all accounts, as in Teignmouth, for example. The biggest problem is that people are having takeaways and bringing stuff down and leaving their rubbish behind them. And it has been a huge, huge problem. I'm told that the recycling and bin men are taking away the amount of material you would normally expect at Christmas, which is much, much more than normal, every week throughout this lockdown. So there's a huge amount of recycling and rubbish being generated. But equally so, those people who came down over the weekend generated a huge amount. There were stacks of takeaway pizza boxes and all sorts in on Teignmouth Back Beach, along with antisocial behaviour with barbecues and the rest, and all sorts of gathering and partying and some very difficult behaviour. The rubbish on the beach was such that, if I have this right, there were 80 bin loads taken off the beach after that one day, which is a huge amount. So the recycling and waste collection services at Teambridge are looking at how they can answer this and looking at what we can do. And we have requested greater police support over the weekends to tackle some of the worst antisocial behaviour and things like barbecues at the Warren that are not allowed at the Warren because there is such a fire risk. Hopefully with this reduction in fine weather, it may not be so bad this coming weekend, but I think we're still expecting a dry summer. So we're looking to put in place all the support that we can from Teambridge. And I think that's all I want to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. You had your hand up earlier. Would you like to go ahead?
Did. Thank you, Chair, very much. Yes, just a very short report. So similar to what we've heard from Councillor Petherick and Wrigley, Linda Petherick. I've had members of the public contact me to a lady who was very concerned about a group cycling on the seawall, which unfortunately Network Rail probably won't do anything about. And the other is with regard to a plague of rats. This is the second report I've had in the Old Vicarage area, which is being caused, amongst other things, by, of course, the recent safety works that have gone on there. Any other news that I have is, of course, that the local plan consultation on Part 1 policies has been extended by 4 weeks, I'm pleased to say, to July the 13th. Separately, I've been contacted by, as a consultee to the previous local plan, to inform me of the price of having documents, paper documents, sent to my house. I'm very grateful to be able to access them online, because they're not cheap. But then, you know, you probably get a wodge like that coming through your letterbox. So if you do want to see a paper copy, well, I'll send you the link for the cost. I would imagine that our clerk would also have paper copies for people to view. The responses so far have been very, very good. So I think people are using their time productively at home and looking at these documents. And well done to everybody who has made a submission on this consultation so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Any other district councillors' reports? Please go ahead. Councillor John Pedrick, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't actually going to say anything, but Councillor Taylor's reference to the plague of rats, I've also had a complaint about the rats in that area. And during the lockdown time, I probably walked through there now, not the actual site itself, but Vicarage Gardens, probably 50 times during the lockdown period, and I haven't seen a rat at all. So I think there's a slight exaggeration there about the rats. I mean, if there are rats, then they're actually coming up from the river and not from the Old Vicarage side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pedrick. Thank you. Okay.
Chairman, if I may, just in response to Councillor Taylor's comments, yes, we do have plans here, but of course the offices are currently closed to the public, and so at the moment we would encourage everybody to look at the plans online on Teamfit's website. But the council will be considering our response at our July meeting, given that it's now been extended. We were going to do it via delegated decision, but as it's now extended past our next meeting date, then it will be on the agenda for our response.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Thank you. So
sorry,
now,
sorry, Chairman, I believe Councillor Moorhood is wishing to speak.
yes, Councillor Moorhood, go ahead.
Just in relation to that, I am concerned as usual. I'm the Luddite of the group. Everything now is online, and it's made worse at the moment from my point of view because of the virus situation. And I'm just really concerned that this is a major consultation, as is the revamp of the local plan. And so many people are disenfranchised who cannot or do not or are unable to use the internet. I don't know the way around it at the moment, but it worries me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Thank you for saying that. Okay, anybody else before we move on to item 13? Okay, so we're moving on to town councillors' reports. To receive reports of town councillors, if any, please raise your hand. Yes, Councillor Prowse, please go ahead.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I had a very interesting rat hanging out of my bird feeder yesterday, very large one. So they have made Nash Gardens. Moving on, as chairman of staffing, Andrew has already mentioned the PPE that he's received and is waiting for the floor marking. So if necessary, it perhaps may not be 2 metres. We don't know yet. We had a staff meeting. Their minutes are not out yet. Welcome back to Yola, who I believe is rejoining the office next week. So that's very nice. Stephen, our waterfowl warden is now back. He's been isolating, as you know. He's now back full time. And sanitizing units are going to go into every room. And I believe, Andrew, you're getting that organised sometime in the very near future.
Yeah,
with
end
the
of,
idea
end
that
of
we'll be
June
able
is
to-
booked in. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. So basically, that's all I've got to say about staffing at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse. Any other town councillors' reports before we move on? Please raise your hand. Okay.
Oh, Councillor Moore, Chairman.
Councillor Moorhood, please go ahead. Did you wish to speak?
I can't unmute it, sorry.
Okay.
Only to confirm that I've sent in a written report.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I remember that has been circulated. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item number 14 then, the final internal audit report 2019-2020, to receive and note the contents and recommendations of the internal auditor for the last financial year. So we've all received the report that has been circulated. Andrew or Yola, do you have any comments you wish to add?
Chairman, thank you. Other than what's already written in the report, it's a good report. It's got some pertinent recommendations for us. And again, my thanks to Yola for going through that with Stuart Pollard for a day via Zoom and various telephone calls and getting that sorted for us, which has resulted in him issuing his certificate of completion to enable us to do our external audit response.
That's excellent. Thank you. And thanks very much to Yola and to you, Andrew, for all your hard work putting this together. Thank you. Councillor Wrigley, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, it's a long and detailed report, and it goes through a lot of detail. So again, thank you to Yola for getting all the bits and pieces together. It's been an interesting year when we've been trying to get various things to reconcile that clearly didn't reconcile, and I think there's been some struggles with the system, but all of those things have been overcome, which is good to see. And it's very nice to see a clean report coming through with the problems having been dealt with, and some recommendations for how we can still further improve, but it's a clean report. I'd like to propose that we accept this and note it, and put a note of thanks to the Finance Officer for getting us to a clean report position.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Councillor Lowther.
I just want to second that. I think Yola's done a tremendous job. Did you get?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, were you seconding Councillor Wrigley's proposal?
I was seconding, yes, I was seconding the proposal.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favour then, please, of accepting this report, please raise your hand. Excellent.
Thank you, Chairman. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Yola. And moving on then to item number 15, annual accounts 2019-2020, to consider, approve and sign the annual governance statements, section 1 of the annual return 2019-2020. That's been circulated. So I'm sure you've all had a chance to have a look at that. Do I have a proposal and a second? Yes, Councillor Wrigley. Okay, Councillor Pedrick, is that second? Okay, thank you. So
no, Chairman. I believe Councillor Wrigley is wishing to speak.
Please go ahead. Please speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is always quite an interesting report to look at. It's set out in a fairly precise way that doesn't necessarily match with what we would recognise in other forms of accounting. It doesn't really give us a huge amount of extra information that we don't know from what we've seen through the year, but it gives us that summary through. So it, without being able to go through all the books to justify all the numbers, it looks about right to me. So I would like to propose that we accept this and note it, accept it. Consider, approve.
Approve.
Approve, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pedrick, would you like to speak? Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. The documents that were circulated, we're on to item 15, is that correct now?
Yeah.
This is item 15, because we've got the balance sheet and we've also got detailed income and expenditure. Are we discussing that now, or is that going to come after this item?
Well, Chairman, they form part of the two items. They relate to both.
Okay, because I have some queries, if I may, please. So regarding the detailed expenditure, there seems to be quite a number of areas where we've exceeded our budget, sometimes by double or even treble. I'm looking on the first sheet. I don't know if you want to go through these a sheet at a time, because other members might want to say something as well. But on the first sheet, looking at accountancy fees, our budget was £1,000 and it's coming at 2,936. I'm just curious as to why that would be.
Yor, did you want to respond to that?
Unmute me. Oh, I'm unmuted now. Yes. I think with the accountancy fees, that was previously a code for accountancy fees, but it's also RBS. I think there is a slash there, obviously, without looking at the information in front of me. So all of those fees relating to RBS will be in that. So we have had various upgrades with some of the software and some of the bolt-ons that we're using to obviously improve what we can do. So that may be why it's gone over.
Yeah, and sorry, and on that, Chairman, it would probably also include the fact that we had to re-engage our previous accounting firm to resolve a pension query relating to a member of staff back in about 2015. And because
long
they
before
were,
any of us started.
Yeah, and because that employee was dealt with by the third-party accounting firm, they had all the backup data and needed to be engaged in order to rectify that. So that would include that fee as well.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I mean, that explains that to me. But moving just slightly further on, the town crier printing and distribution, that's gone over budget by nearly £4,000. Now, I know that delivery was an issue. Is it just because of the delivery that it's gone over by about £4,000?
Yes, it will be. I mean, this is something that has come up several times in F&GP, and I know, obviously, my colleague Angie would have sent several reports, obviously, discussing the issues. Certainly, one of the issues was very last minute, something that couldn't have been predicted, and obviously, we then had to have the circulation done at very short notice.
Okay, now just one more thing on this page. I mean, IT maintenance and IT equipment, I know that we've been upgrading, but office supplies, we overspent there by £2,000. Sorry, no, we overspent there by 84%, office supplies. Should it be 1,250? We spent 2,301.
That covers all aspects of stationery, office water and things like that. It may well be that obviously with the home working, particularly at the end of the year, there might be a slight influx where we've obviously had to get things like cartridges and things like that, but not really. Again, that may just be something that, you know, it wasn't budgeted. We didn't realise how much we were going to need to spend. I don't know whether Andrew wants to add anything to that, but obviously it's one of those things that we order what we need and then obviously the bill comes in and it's paid. It's not, you can't not have paper and things like that. So it's, yeah, I don't think we're over ordering as such, but whether some of the stationery's been upgraded or not, I don't know.
No, it's just, it's coming in sort of 84% more than it should have. No, I've got some queries on the next page, unless somebody else wants to chip in. Can I carry on?
Yes.
Okay. The next one is hanging baskets. This is for last year. I appreciate that, not this year. But we exceeded the budget by £2,884 last year for hanging baskets. That's presumably because extra items were added.
No, Chairman, this will be because of the watering issue where the contractor was unable to continue our element of watering. So we had to engage at the very last minute a contractor to do this. And it was quite a large increase that wasn't budgeted for, which we've now been able to go back to our original contractor and reduce that fee.
Okay. That was reported, I think, at the time to F&GP, because we knew that it was quite. I think it might have been a meeting that Andrew actually sat in for another reason, but did mention.
Oh, okay. And the final thing is the Riverside Centre. I mean, looking at the income and looking at our expenditure, the income was 11,600-ish, but our expenditure was over 15,000. So our expenditure is exceeding the income. And I wonder if perhaps we should take a closer look at that. Finance for general purposes should take a closer look at the viability of us running the Riverside Centre if we're losing money. Because what's not factored into the figures in front of me, which I guess everybody else has had as well, there's nothing regarding admin, because there must be an admin charge as well, which I know is not factored in here, but there must be an admin sort of liability as well, the Riverside Centre.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a case for reviewing, you know, our responsibilities for the Riverside Centre. We did have to put in a new boiler, which obviously wasn't budgeted for. It just broke. We've also had issues with block drains and new flooring required, so it has incurred expenditure, and this was borne in mind when the budget was set the year before last. It was agreed that we should see how it goes for the next couple of years. I think Councillor Goodman-Bradbury was in on that at that time on the budget subcommittee. And so, yeah, it may well be that members want to have a fresh look at this and decide the way forward.
Just in addition to that, the Riverside Centre was obviously discussed as part of the budget setting process. And I think we did put aside some money for promotions, because it's not been something that we've maybe had the resource to do, or maybe looked at in a coordinated way with obviously the Manor House as well, to have that promotion across both centres. So I know that that's something that we're looking at and put money in the budget for this year, but certainly perhaps last year it wasn't picked up as much as it could have been.
Thank you. I just think we need to take a closer look at it, that's all. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Petherick. Thank you, Yola. Councillor Moorhood, I can see you've got your hand raised.
Need to unmute her.
Val, sorry, you're muted again. I didn't see you were unmuted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Regarding the Riverside Centre, the Manor House and Riverside Committee are aware of the fact that it's a very fine balance between profit and loss. And on top of that, as the clerk just said, there have been various repairs and replacements necessary. I believe there was a cooker involved as well, or was to be involved.
Yeah.
And also the F&G committee are But as far as the baskets go, I'm here to ask whether Angie, our projects officer, could clarify on that, because there were a lot of difficulties and it cost us a huge amount for watering last year, but we've resolved a lot of issues, I believe, Angie.
Yes, as outlined at the last CAC meeting, I think, that took place before the lockdown, we indicated that we're purchasing new baskets to save water. We're bringing some of the watering in-house. I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but I know we saved a significant amount of money over even buying new baskets this year. And as I say, some of the watering is coming in-house. It's the most, I think it was quite a cost-effective solution we've got this year.
Thank you, Angie. I can see Councillor Petherick and Councillor Prowse have got their hands raised. Please go ahead first, Councillor Petherick.
Sorry, I've just moved on now to the balance sheet. Is this an appropriate time to discuss that, the balance sheet? No?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay, because there's some good news there. The community infrastructure levy is coming in now. I see there's £16,000, so that is good news, that we're getting income from the new houses that are being built. Obviously, the residents of Dawlish are having to endure all these new houses, but at least we're getting a small amount of compensation for them now. £16,000, that's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Prowse. I saw you waving earlier. Did you wish to speak?
When you were talking, Councillor Petherick, about the Riverside and the Manor House, the Riverside has, I think, had quite a lot of vandalism, which I am assuming we've had to pay to put right. And also, when we had the problem with the Manor House, was that covered with insurance? The new roof, the veranda, something happened along the side there. How, has that come into these figures, or is that the next lot?
That they will have been incurred in the new financial year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Because we did have a, I'm sure Councillor Wrigley made a, I can't remember now, but I think Councillor Wrigley made a proposal to approve this. So can I just ask Councillor Wrigley, sorry, Town Clerk, please go ahead.
Sorry, what I was going to say, Councillor Wrigley did indeed propose approval of, and you're currently considering section 1 of the annual governance statement, which is the points 1 to 9, which is all yes, except for question 9, which is no, as the council doesn't have any trust funds. So that is how the council will be answering, should you all approve that proposal, Chairman.
Right, okay, thank you. Yes, so can I have a second? Can I have someone second that, please? Yes, Councillor Morhood.
Yes, I'd be willing to second that proposal from Councillor Wrigley.
Thank you. So all those in favour of approving that, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So now moving on to, I'm confused. Sorry, Andrew, I'm losing my place on the agenda. Was
right,
that
item 16 now, Chairman?
Thank you. So item 16 then, annual accounts, to consider, approve and sign the accounting statement, section 2 of the annual return for 2019-2020. Councillor Wrigley, you've got your hand raised. Please go ahead.
You need to unmute him.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so these two are intimately related, as our town clerk ably said. The first part of this is the tick list, saying yes to everything. The second part is the figures. We've gone through many of the figures and some of the questions, which was a brief sort of tour through many of the discussions that we had in the F&GP meeting in the last year. All of those, apart from the office supplies, all of those things came up and we went through them in the F&GP. So we all need to look at the office supplies. Councillor Petherick has a good eye for detail, so that's very good to pick that one up. This is the numbers. I propose that we approve these and sign them off.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Can I have someone to second that, please? To second that proposal? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So now all those in favour of approving that, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, that's that ticked off then. Okay, so item number 17, National Volunteer Week. That's this week. To consider recording a vote of thanks for all local volunteers and the help that they have been giving to the Helping Dawlish relief effort, and all those who commit their own time for helping others. As I mentioned earlier in my report, it's tremendous the work that volunteers put in, and that's what I believe keeps Dawlish so special for the community that it is. So please, any other councillors wishing to make comments? Yes, Councillor Wrigley, please go ahead.
Just keep on finding my mouse because I'm busy looking at the documents over there. I have to bring it back to this screen to unmute myself. Thank you, Chair. Yes, it never ceases to amaze me how generous and helpful and kind the people of Dawlish are. And I'd like to add this a vote of thanks for all those people who have donated so generously to the Helping Dawlish funds, as we heard earlier. Seeing how people have come together to form sort of help and mutual aid is fantastic. There was one gentleman who rang me up in the early days of the lockdown saying they were relatively new to the area, they didn't quite know anybody and their family weren't here and they were shielding and they were a bit worried. and I was ringing them back on a regular basis through the weeks. And gradually he built up a network of local helpers and volunteers, and one person 2 doors up who was dropping off their prescriptions, and another person who was going to another particular shop and dropping things off for them. And I think this will have built fantastically strong neighbourhood bonds, as we have found people within our neighbourhoods who we wouldn't necessarily have bumped into before. So I think it's been a real strengthening of our community, and I am fantastically thankful to everybody who's been out and about and helping and donating and supporting and doing all the things that they can, some of whom are doing this from a position of being shielded themselves, but still reaching out to others to help them. So very much so, I think we should record a vote of thanks for the volunteers, and I'd like to add for the donors who have donated so generously to the funds and in kind for helping Dawlish, including the smugglers, which is a fantastic thing to be able to do. So I'd like to propose that.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Yes, Councillor Lowther, Councillor Terry Lowther.
Can I add to that list of great and good people that we've just heard? Some of the people have been involved in the Clap for Carers campaign that's been going on. You know, the Thursday evening when people come out and clap for the NHS. There have been quite a good many people who've been the core of various little groups. I think the whole thing has been very successful. Quite a lot of these groups have been got together, if you like, by particular individuals, particular streets or particular developments. One that I have personal experience of is Bert the Bugler. You know, our wonderful Bert who plays the Lost Post and all that sort of thing, and all the council events. He has taken to coming out on Thursday evenings and playing. Well, he started off by playing fanfare. Now it's about to playing sections from Mamma Mia and God knows what else that people join in. Has managed to get the whole of Brook Street dancing and singing on a Thursday evening, and I think that sort of thing is a wonderful demonstration of the sort of community spirit that Councillor Wrigley has been talking about. So I'd like to include all those people too.
Thank you, Councillor Lowther. Councillor Moorhood, you've got your hand raised. Councillor Main. Councillor Pedrick, do you wish to speak?
Just adding really, but in a more general way. I think when we're talking about volunteers, all of us know, and this is why we live here, or luckily we were born here, as John was and so forth, the whole of Dawlish parish is full of volunteers, people who every day of the week think of their neighbours or their friends and help out in little ways. It just happens that this time it's all coalesced into a big volunteer movement. I just think we are so lucky to live here. We're so lucky to have such amazing people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Councillor Main, please go ahead.
I think Councillor Pedrick was before me. Linda Pedrick.
Okay, Councillor Linda Pedrick, please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Main. I'm sure that all the volunteers that have been helping, Angie will be sending out letters thanking them as they come in, as they do things. It reminds me a bit of when we had the crisis with the railway, where, you know, the World and its wife in Dawlish all helped and did what they could. What might be nice is if we did a big thank you in the paper, a big thank you to everybody that's helped, an article, or take out half a page and do a big thank you to Dawlish during the crisis, something like that.
Thank you, Councillor Pedrick. Councillor Main, please go ahead.
I don't think the volunteers need a thank you. I think they just want £50 behind the bar and then they'd be quite happy. We're quite lucky. I don't know if you're all aware of this. With Sefton Hall, they've actually made the Japanese news by having a family drive-through. They've kept their residents safe. They sat their residents outside with a carer, with all PPE on, and the families of the residents who haven't been allowed to visit them for 12 weeks drove through in their cars. That was an emotional day for everybody. And I think we're so lucky to have somewhere like Sefton Hall in Dawlish. I know it's a business, but I think they need a big thank you from everybody, because I'm going to put my name down. I'm going there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Councillor Prowse, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Petherick, Linda Petherick, mentioned something that I was going to say when we lost our railway line. That was really, if you like, the forerunner of this, because that was a fantastic effort by this town. And I always had the feeling that this was a town with a big heart and great spirit. And I would like to see us also go out on our website thanking everybody as well, because it is really important. Thank yous are more important than anything.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse. So we've got the proposal from Councillor Wrigley, and then your suggestions for in the newspaper and on the website. And I'd like to add that we could do a live thank you on that goes out on social media. So we've got the proposal. All those in favour of...
Kevin, just before you take the vote, I believe Councillor Petherick's indicating to speak.
Yes, Councillor Petherick.
That's what the proposal is.
As Councillor Wrigley proposed that we do consider recording a vote of thanks for all our local volunteers. Was that correct, Councillor Wrigley, or do you wish to re-speak it, please?
In what form?
As I've just said, so would be... Well, Councillor Wrigley, please go ahead. Sorry, I'm losing my words. Councillor Wrigley.
I'm very happy to add in all the suggestions which are very good, to put it in the paper, to put it on the website, and to make that vote of thanks as wide and widely heard and felt as we can, because I think, as everybody here has said, this town has shown itself to be a fantastic place to live, with fantastic people in it who have come up trumps in a crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. So, yes, Councillor Lowther.
Good excuse to have a big event when it's all over.
Yes, when it's all over. So, do people that have got their hands raised now, do you wish to make comments still, or are you going to be a seconder for the proposal that we have, please? Yes, Councillor Prowse, Councillor Moorhood, are you seconding? Can we all vote in favour, please? Raise your hand.
I believe Chairman Councillor Moorhood's wishing to speak.
Councillor Moorhood, please go ahead and speak. I need some paracetamol.
I simply wanted to say it's a wonderful time to say thank you after this big effort, but we also need to say keep up the good work. We don't want to give the impression, as is sometimes being given out on by the government in general, that this is all over. It isn't. I think this is great for all the work you've done so far. Let's keep pulling together. I think it's important that we don't give the impression that it's all over. It's a long way from all over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Okay, thank you. So can we go ahead, please, to approve this, to vote for this? Do we all approve this in favour, please? Please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on then to item number 18, to consider the report of the Town Clerk recommending the acquiring of the Modern Gov Committee management software. So this report was circulated together with the agenda. Have all councillors had a chance to have a look at it? And does anybody wish to start off with comments? Yes, Councillor Taylor, I can see you've got your hand raised.
Oh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have had a look through this and looked at the detail of the cost savings especially, and I'm sure that our clerk would be happy to go over them in more detail should members require. I'm very taken with how much of a saving we can be making on officer time on this for our council, and I'm very much in favour of it. So I would certainly wish to propose as set out, but happy to hear what other people would have to say about it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Petherick, I can see you've got your hand raised. Please go ahead.
We use this at Teambridge, and yes, it is really, really good. But I do understand that. What would we do, Andrew, for people like Councillor James, who doesn't really use computer?
Councillor James has now been issued with a council iPad, and he's also got a SIM card that enables him to access the internet via mobile data, much like your mobile phone. But also for those, it doesn't affect anybody that doesn't have access to the internet. It still allows us to produce paper copies, have them available for inspection at the offices as and when we're permitted to do that, so that there's no detrimental effect to those that aren't online.
Yeah, it's really easy, and you can have all your different sheets on the screen and bring them down in as and when you want to, mark all your papers. I mean, obviously we'd need a lot of training in it, but I would really recommend that we go ahead with it.
Thank you, Councillor Petherick. Councillor John Petherick, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. Just quickly, really, it is excellent software. Councillor Taylor's proposed that we actually make the purchase, and I'm happy to second that proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've got a proposal in a second. Do I take the vote now, or do I listen to the other comments?
No, Chairman, I believe Councillors Moorhood and Prowse are wishing to speak.
Okay, so Councillor Moorhood, please go ahead.
Councillor Prowse is before me.
Okay, Councillor Prowse, please go ahead.
I was only going to say, in view of the fact that there are going to have to be some very severe cost-cutting measures in the future, that this is a first-class system, and that we should be trained in it and we should carry on with it. I was only going to back up, that was all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse. Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Please go ahead.
Sorry, where am I again? As usual, I'm the one who is concerned about people who don't use the internet. And I think it's a wonderful system, but I would prefer that when we do adopt it, that it is in parallel to another system where we have, for example, and I'm sure other people will have better ideas and suggestions than I do, but that all our information from this council is also circulated, for example, to the library, to Open Door, to local housing associations, residents associations, even Sefton and so forth, with a request that as far as possible they circulate this information and involve their residents, their customers, whatever, because otherwise we are disenfranchising a very large proportion of our residents. A lot of them can't make it for various reasons to collect a paper bundle at the Manor House. I don't think it would be difficult to do what I'm suggesting, and I think it would show that we are being democratic in our processes. Otherwise, yes, great idea.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Moorhood. Thank you. We did have a proposal and a second to go ahead with this, acquiring this software. So I shall take that vote now. Can all those in favour please raise your hands? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous. Councillor Moorhead, I didn't see.
And those any abstentions to that? Please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Moorhead. Thank you, councillors. Okay, so now moving on to item number 19, the Manor House and Riverside Centre charges. So this was to consider options for the temporary reduction in fees of the Manor House and Riverside Centre, taking account of social distancing impacts on room capacities, including wedding packages. The report was circulated yesterday evening, and I'm wondering whether councillors have had a chance to read it all. Thank you to Manda and Angie for putting this report together. So I'll take any questions or comments from councillors. Please raise your hand.
Chairman, just at this juncture, I'm just going to allow Councillors Dawson and Lowther to go to the waiting room.
Oh, Councillor Dawson, please do go to the waiting room. Thank you. Thank you. Has Councillor Wrigley gone to the waiting room as well? He had his hand up. No, you're there. You've moved places. Musical chairs. Councillor Wrigley, you had your hand up for a comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Taylor might have been just before me, but since I've got the microphone, I'll use it. Sorry about that. I like the ideas behind this, and thank you to the office for putting this together, but I do have some concerns. I'm not sure that I could yet support this because I don't know the costs of actually implementing it. So we talk about letting out the rooms and then thoroughly cleaning them afterwards. I'm not sure how much that's going to be. So when you look at the smaller rooms, if somebody hires that for an hour at £5, I'm not sure that's going to cover the costs of cleaning it. So I'm not sure this is necessarily actually going to be particularly in our interests to do as it's set out. I would like more time to consider this and to look at the ramifications and the costs behind some of the suggestions in here. I think it's a good start, but I think we need a little bit more investigation. We already know that, for example, we may not be making money on the Riverside in terms of letting out for events. Some of the larger events that we talk about, and many of the events that people do at the Manor House, will not be good ideas. We already know that choirs are awful places for passing on the virus. The last thing you want is a whole bunch of people opening their mouths and expelling lots of hot air if any of them has got a dose of virus. We've seen several outbreaks due to choirs and people singing, which is one of the reasons why churches are still shut. Also, things like Zumba, things like exercise classes, where you are jumping up and down and you are expelling hot air and doses of virus all over each other. So I think we need to be very careful in looking at some of this. Mid to end of July, I think we can look at this and consider this in its term and actually bring this back to the council meeting at the beginning of July to consider when we've thought about the sorts of activities that would be appropriate to reopen for, when we consider the sort of costs that would be involved in hiring small rooms for short periods in terms of the cleaning and the regime behind that. And whilst I think it's a step in the right direction, would very much support it, I think we need to support it look at it in its entirety. So I'd propose that we look for just a little bit more investigation into those particular aspects, some of the activities that are and aren't suitable, the costs behind cleaning each of the rooms between usages. And whilst I support the idea of opening it up for community use as soon as we possibly can and are allowed to, and it is appropriate to do so, I would urge caution at this time, and ask that we do more work on it and refer and put it back to, defer it to the July meeting.
Okay,
Chairman, if I may.
Councillor Wrigley. I saw that Angie had her hand raised first, and I know that Councillor Main and Councillor Pedrick also wish to comment. But Angie, as you're one of the, as you kindly put this report together, do you wish to comment first? Please go ahead.
Chairman, can I just quickly jump in just for some clarification for myself from Councillor Wrigley, if that's okay through you, Chairman. If the government say that normal activities are okay to be resumed, such as gym classes or choirs, are you suggesting that the council takes a local decision on what to allow or not to allow, which may be contrary to national guidance?
Councillor
I'm
Wrigley.
not suggesting that we go against national guidance at all, and things like gyms and churches and choirs are of a different category to most of the other activities and are unlikely to be allowed, along with pubs and clubs. They are our hotspots for spreading the virus. So no, I'm not suggesting we go against national guidance. What I am suggesting is we look carefully at what sort of activities we are expecting, and we don't open ourselves up to having lots of small, very safe meetings involving lots of costs of cleaning and lots of not a particularly useful way of using our time or our cash. So just proceed with caution is what I'm suggesting.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Angie, did you wish to go ahead? Please do.
If I may, the reason this report perhaps has come so early to Council is that we have been approached by different organisations wanting to come back as soon as the lockdown is lifted. And some of the surprising ones are perhaps the Bridge Club and this sort of thing. But just to say, that's perhaps why this is an early stage. I think the other side of it is, so we wanted some sort of try and get some sort of clarity as to where we might be looking. I think it's possible that, yes, it's come perhaps too soon, and we could look at a tiered approach to charging if council was so minded to do that. And what I mean by that is we obviously have some very long existing customers who've been with us for a considerable period of time, who, you know, what sort of priority would they have over a new booking, because there are going to be organisations who will not be able to meet in the locations they have been meeting in other venues in the town. I think the other thing to say is we are starting to be approached in terms of small rooms by businesses for letting space. That is actually happening for businesses that are looking for small office space, which might be able to accommodate in the smaller rooms. We've also been looking at a reconfiguration of potentially some of the space upstairs to free up space to make more rooms available, because as you will have noted, there is a significant drop in the room capacity that we can actually carry out. I think in terms of the cleaning, we've had some office discussions which have not really progressed, but we were talking about, for example, what would be the extent of the cleaning that would need to be carried out, and whether, for example, it might have to be some office staff who are involved in doing that to reduce the cost of a contractual service if certain standards could be met. I think that there's two parts to the paper, and I would just like to say that the second part, which regards weddings, it's highly unlikely we'll hold any weddings for the next 3 months, even if we were approached. But we are starting to see interest in small scale weddings. And one of the issues prior to this virus situation is that the cost of weddings were far too high to attract people for the whole building this year, as the price was normally doubled. So that's why that's in there. It's in there from a couple of reasons. But I just thought it might be helpful to give the background as to why perhaps this has come forward to this meeting, and it's been some sort of pressure from our actual hirees who are ringing up trying to book, and we've sort of been saying, you know, we should have a bit more clarity in due course, but there is no way, obviously, we would go seek to have anything in the rooms that would not meet any government guidance. I think that goes without saying. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much, Angie. Thank you, and thank you for your work putting this together. Councillor Moorhood, I can see you've got your hand raised, and Councillor Linda Petherick next. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It just occurs to me, I know there's a lot of work gone into this, but it's been very suddenly arrived on our desks. And I think it needs a considerable amount of thought, partly because it may be that it would appear that we're giving favour to certain groups and not to others. Obviously, if a room's been used, it can't suddenly have somebody else moved in. The cost, as Councillor Wrigley pointed out, the costs, what we pay for caretaking and cleaning are quite large. So I would prefer that we have more time to think about it, and if the projects officer has got more information to feed it in the meantime, that would help us to make decisions for July. Yeah. I don't think that we need to rush this at the moment. I know it would be very nice to do so, but we might do the wrong thing by trying to jump in to please somebody when the situation is still very fluid, especially after all the influx of visitors in the last week or two. I would not be at all surprised if the Southwest begins to see a rise in cases. And we would only be adding to that for the sake of just a few more weeks to consider this more deeply. I think it's a good idea, but we need more thought.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. Councillor Linda Petherick, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I do understand that we want to bring people back, and I do understand the reasons people are giving for not doing it, but I do think that we must give the office our trust to do what they think is safe and right. They're there day in and day out, and they know what can be done and what can't be done, and I would trust them to make decisions about what can and can't be done. I mean, I think things are going to turn around in July anyway. There's a lot of things going to start opening up then. But I would just like to see us giving the office a bit more trust that they know what they're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Petherick. Councillor Terry Lowther, I saw your hand raised, and then Councillor Lisa Main.
Yes, I think that's perfectly true. I'm not against giving the office some trust. I think Councillor Petherick is correct in that. I also agree that this is a complex, it's a very valuable, it's a useful report. It's taken a lot of time and effort to put together. And I think we owe it a bit of time and effort to read it and understand it thoroughly. And as Councillor Moorhood said, take into account other things that Angie might come up with, because I think she has put a lot of work into this, and I think we ought to take it seriously and come to the right decision, even if it does mean a bit of delay.
Thank you.
I would, if Councillor Wrigley was making a proposal about delay, I'm seconding it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we've got a proposal and a second, but do I take the other comments first?
Yes, Chairman, and I understand. I believe Angie wishes to speak, if that's okay.
Okay, Angie, please go ahead.
Sorry, just one final comment. Within the proposals, it does say the proposals are for initial period of 3 months and then to be reviewed. So you're not signing a blank check. It is for 3 months if it were to happen, and that's if guidance is relaxed. So it may well come back to you very, very quickly. So it wasn't asking, the office wasn't asking for a blank check. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Councillor Main, did you have a comment to say?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I put my hand right at the very beginning after I was listening to Councillor Wrigley talking. I do. Lockdowns coming out of lockdown seems to be really rushed, and things are happening that I don't think should be happening now. It's much too early. I think choirs and Zumba classes are going to start to take place again. And if the government says it can go ahead, it can go ahead. We need to have a plan in place, and we need to take guidance from the office. I trust the office staff, and I do think within 3 months we will be going back to room hires. We've got this plan in place. There's been a lot of work to put this plan in place. We're not saying it's right for people to come in and have a Zumba class. If the government says they can do it, they can do it. And we just as well hire them the room safely. So I would like to propose that we take guidance from the office, and what's written here we follow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Main. Councillor Prowse, you've got your hand raised. Yes, and then Councillor Taylor. Councillor Prowse.
Yeah, thank you. I listened to all of this, and then I'm going to say something which you all love. I can remember. You all smile, because I wouldn't like you not to have a remembrance from me during this meeting when we fought, or a lot of residents of Dawlish fought very hard to keep the Manor House. The only way we could keep the Manor House was to make it a profitable organisation. Now, I completely understand everything that's been said today, but I think the most important thing that was said today is that this is for 3 months. And I also think that people need a guidance as to what they can expect when they come here. And I completely agree with Councillor Main and Councillor Petherick that we should trust our staff. We trust them for everything else. Why can we not trust them at least for the next 3 months to work this out? Because I'm quite certain there will be a lot of changes going on in July. Yes, I can see you, Andrew. But I'm quite certain there will be a lot of changes that do go on. But Councillor Wrigley will be the first to say about finance, as will Councillor John Petherick. We have got to keep the Manor House going safely. I completely agree. But I do think we need something for them to work with. To leave it for another month with people constantly asking what we're doing is not a very good way forward. Yes, Andrew.
Thank you, Councillor Prowse. Councillor Taylor, you had your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm picking up on that point from Councillor Prowse. Certainly, yes, we should look to be profitable as soon as possible. So I was very pleased, well, first of all, to receive this report and to note the selling up that's at the heart of it. That you know, if we've got the space available, and if somebody is concerned about the number of people that would normally fit in a room, we can say, well, yes, you can have, you know, a much bigger room for the same price. To me, that says we're not losing any money through that transaction as long as that other room is available. We may need to consider a list of charges for customers who phone up and say, well, actually, you know, and be ready for if that bigger room isn't available. So I think we need to have a discounted price where applicable for A, for B, for instance, if those are available individually, a discounted price because of the reduction in people that the room will hold. I was also very pleased to hear from Angie about the fact that we're being approached by businesses for the smaller rooms, because I think it's through having more regular income from such perhaps longer leases, that we can actually have our profitability more glued down. So I do appreciate certainly that. I think we should be more belt and braces. We are, as we've heard, Dawlish, If you live in Dawlish, you're likely to live longer than in other areas of Devon, and I want to keep it that way. So if it means that we have to be more careful than most on how we move forward, then so be it. And I can't imagine for one moment that our government would put us in a position that we have to abide by rules that would compromise the safety for ourselves, our customers, and the wider Dawlish public. Thank you.
Chairman,
Councillor Taylor. Andrew, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As Angie said, one of the reasons for this report was really to bring it to your attention that we're obviously thinking about how we begin to come out of this pandemic and how we can try and get the Manor House making money again, not just for the council but for the residents to ensure its longevity. We also need to acknowledge that we do still have regular bookers who do want to come back, and I think perhaps the issue may be becoming blurred by our actions that we take to ensure the public safety when they do use our building, and the higher charges that we put in place to encourage them to come back. Obviously, if the government announces that these groups are free to meet in village halls, then obviously we will then work to ensure that whatever guidance is still in place, be it the 2-metre rule, as we have done, we've now measured out the larger rooms to ensure that we know how many people can reasonably be fitted in those rooms at a safe distance. And we can say to the hirers, it's great that you want to come back to us and we encourage you to continue to do so. But you have to understand that the guidance is presently a 2-metre gap must be abided by. We've measured out on the floor and marked where those 2-metre spots are. So if you are doing Zumba classes or you're doing a choir, it will be for you to know that the room holds X amount of people and for you to assign people in that room accordingly to ensure your users' safety. I have checked with our insurers and it's no different to now where the hirer is responsible for the health and safety of their class, so long as we have met the basic needs to ensure overall health and safety, and that would not change in this circumstance. So we are confident that if the government does say these groups can meet, then we want to be able to hit the floor running with steps in place to ensure we can get back to some sort of normality as quickly as possible. We'd like to think we're not rushing it, having brought this, a month before the anticipated change in regulations. But as has been said, it's a fluid situation we're in. So hopefully, members, you'll appreciate that we're just trying to bring this and get your steer on hopefully where we're going is the direction you want us to take the Manor House lettings.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. So before we go to a vote, I can see Councillor Goodman-Bradbury's got a hand raised. Please go ahead. And
Councillor Wrigley as well, Chairman.
And Councillor Wrigley, please go ahead. Councillor Goodman-Bradbury.
Okay. I've listened to a twos and fro's here, and I appreciate what you've just said, Andrew. I think we all realise that this isn't about rushing into something. We're all got to be led by the guidelines. But I do think there's something to be said. I know someone in the hotel or B&B trade, and a lot of the guidelines that they're discussing at the moment with their groups are about deep cleans between people. I mean, I know there's a difference between someone using a room and someone staying in a room for a short break, but there's a real kind of, there's an onus on a charge for deep cleans in the rooms, and perhaps even 48 hours in between people staying in the same rooms. And I think we have got to be conscious about that. I also realise we've got to balance that against making money. And as a point that Councillor Prowse said about keeping the Manor House going and fueling the wonderful building for the community as well. So it might be that we consider the spacing, but we also need to consider the charging for the cleaning, and it might be we have to think of an additional cost perhaps to reflect that extra clean that would need to be done. I think it's not exactly just a quick whisk around with a duster. It's a bleach and all that kind of thing. Just wanted to make that point anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman-Bradbury. So, Councillor Wrigley, did you have your digital hand raised?
I did, thank you. I just want to point out that my suggestion to defer is in no way implying any lack of trust in the office, which has been suggested, albeit implied rather than stated. Of course I trust the office, of course I trust all the good work that is done by the office, and you do fantastic work all the time. But I do think this is something that we can do in slow time and bring forward separately. If we had a situation whereby the government suddenly said we can meet in big groups inside, which of course we cannot at this point, then by all means we can make these changes under delegated powers once we've had a chance to look into the further details, and we can bring it forward in July if we have no such change to do so. So I stand by my trust in the office staff and my suggestion, my proposal, that we defer it to the July meeting, giving us an opportunity to put more thought into it. There is no reason why we should not publish what we have, saying this is coming up for the July meeting, and this gives us a basis to have the discussions with our regular users, saying this is what we are likely to be doing, especially once we've gone through the finer details that we have talked about.
Thank you, Councillor Ridley, and thank you for the points that you make there. Before we go to the vote, Councillor Moorhood, did you wish to speak again? Please go ahead. If you unmute yourself, did you wish to speak again?
I wish to say just three things to finish. One is, as Councillor Wrigley's just said, no one would suggest that the office staff can't be trusted. I would point out, however, that they are not the ones responsible for what happens. We as a corporate body, all of us, are responsible for what happens. As far as businesses wanting to use the rooms, small rooms, that sounds good, but I would just say be aware of the fact that that reduces parking spaces and needs to be linked to rents and carefully thought of. And the other major concern I have is that we've been talking about, for example, with the ladies' toilets, and this would obviously apply to the gentlemen's toilets just now in the new situation. We've been talking about renewing them, and I sent out information about some amazing toilets at the theatre in Teignmouth, where it's virtually hands-free. Now, I would have hoped by now that we'd put something in hand to investigate that. They've done it, so they can tell us all the information. Because otherwise, how are we going to deep clean toilets every time somebody uses them? And how do the staff use them? I've already brought this up with Andrew a little while ago, and I think they were thinking that the staff might use the one on the first floor rather than mix and match in the middle one. But these are all things we need to think of far more seriously now than we did a couple of months ago. Anyway, I drop it now.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood, for those comments. So we did have a proposal from Councillor Wrigley to, can you repeat your proposal, please? Councillor Wrigley, can you repeat your proposal?
Yes, to continue working on this report, fleshing out the details and bring it back to the July meeting for a decision.
Thank you. Did we have a second for that proposal, please?
Councillor Lowther.
Councillor Terry Lowther, thank you. So all those in favour of that proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And then I believe we had a...
Chairman, you need to, sorry, Chairman, if I may, you just need to ask for any objections or abstentions.
Right, okay, so yeah, sorry about that. So abstentions to that proposal, please raise your hand.
None.
None. And objections to that proposal, please raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So Do I?
That's deferred, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So moving on then to item number 20, do we have time?
Well, I was just about to say, Chairman, you are rapidly approaching 9 o'clock, so if members wish to pass a resolution to extend the meeting by half an hour, then now's your chance.
Okay, so councillors, you heard that we've just got just under 3 minutes remaining. Please, if you wish to continue for item number 20 and extend this meeting by half an hour, please raise your hand.
Chairman, Councillor Wrigley, I believe, is wishing to speak.
Yes, Councillor Wrigley, go ahead.
Can we readmit councillors Dawson and Lowther, please, to help us?
They're on their way.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Councillor Dawson. Welcome back, Councillor Mary Lowther. Okay, so we're just 2 minutes remaining. So we're just voting on whether to extend this meeting by half an hour so that we can continue the meeting with item number 20. So all those in favour of extending the meeting by up to half an hour, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So we go ahead then with item number 20, the parish recovery plan, to consider options to include in a parish recovery plan being drafted by officers and to put forward measures to Devon County and Teignbridge District Councils in respect of potential measures being implemented in and around the parish for the benefit of businesses and the general public during the COVID-19 pandemic. The report was circulated yesterday evening. So I believe that this is an introduction to our parish recovery plan, and I've been reading through it. It looks a very good plan, and my thinking for how we look at this evening maybe is as an initial indication for officers, maybe if each councillor wishes to select their top three choices from this report, top three options, and then maybe we could consider further the plan at next month's meeting, because we had this circulated to us last night. I don't know, it's lots of things to think about, and what do councillors think about selecting their top three options from this report? Angie, I can see you're waving. Please go ahead.
Chairman, thank you. And some of these items are time specific in terms of funding, so Angie will be able to give you some more information on that.
Okay, thank you. Angie, please go ahead. Thank you.
What's it doing? There we go.
Firstly, I'd like to apologise to councillors for the late arrival of this report. Just other priorities in the office meant it came out late, and it has required a substantial amount of work. I would say that there are 4 sections to it, and I think what would be useful is if, in line with what Councillor Foden was saying, you could indicate potentially within each section what you would like pursued. The difficulty is everything is moving at a breakneck speed. Things are being announced, and there's not necessarily a lot of guidance behind them. For example, we do not know what Devon County Council may allocate for different schemes or for the Dawlish parish, but we do know that other towns are making their recovery plans to make their bids, such as in other areas. So I think it would be helpful if you could prioritise within A, B, C and D as to what you would see. And a further update to the item is on item section D, item 5, which is consider funding for a local car park cinema event. I just would like to let councillors know I've actually had some discussions with the safety requirements, and it's not something that's feasible now, but it's looking at a much longer timescale and there is quite a lot of work of discussion going on behind that. So a lot of this, where you've got a sentence, there is stuff going on behind the scenes. It's just to try and give you a summary of where we were at this point in time. But I do apologise, it was extremely late.
Thank you very much, Angie. Thank you, and thank you for putting this together, because it's all the different options look really quite exciting. Thank you. Do any other councillors wish to speak first, or do you wish to maybe go through and each say your favourite options for A, B, C and D? Do councillors wish to go ahead and do that? I can start off with saying, yes, Councillor Linda Pedrick, did you wish to speak first?
I did. I haven't read it properly because it came too late, and sadly I haven't read it properly, so I wouldn't be able to give the ones I wanted to put forward.
Okay. Okay, well, I was going to start off and say what I particularly liked, just by quickly skimming through it. For section A, for roads, parking and speed limits, I'd be quite delighted to see the Strand considered for pedestrianisation for certain hours on a couple of weekdays and at weekends, obviously allowing time at both ends of day for delivery, but I'd like that to be considered for section A. For section B, I think I would like to see just to have it considered for the high summer months, the lawn able to be used for tables and chairs to serve refreshments for the high summer. For C, I think it's a wonderful idea that Dawlish Town Council maybe uses the banner signs down the Strand for messages like 2 metres please, and maybe have a cutout of Bruce Forsyth saying nice 2 metre, nice, that sort of thing. And then lastly, for publicity, open for business, again, I think all of those suggestions are brilliant, but I think the walking and the cycling booklets, I think, would be a really good option. But that's my personal favourites at the moment. So, councillors, do you wish to let us all know your choices? Yes, Councillor Ridley. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, Angie, no need to apologise. Thank you for doing this. It's a fantastic range of things. Like you say, things are moving so tremendously fast. We have to be in a position where we can take advantage of that funding. So I would like to add in that we encourage the use of delegated powers in consultation with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor as they're set out, to take advantage as funding becomes available, because you never know quite how long such funding is going to be around, and these things get used very quickly. I love everything on the list. They've all got fantastic possibilities. There's a whole range of different things that we can do. My initial sort of preferences, having skimmed through it and read it quickly, I too like the idea of exploring partial pedestrianisation of the Strand. I know we've talked about it a lot, and some people would say we've tried it before and it didn't happen, but I think it's something worth looking at. In terms of B, we are having conversations about rubbish bins, and there is a theory about reducing the numbers of rubbish bins in some areas and increasing them in others. So I'm not sure we would necessarily want to look at that one today, but the extra cycle parking is certainly a good one. And I'm tied between that and putting tables and chairs on the lawn. I think I'll probably go for tables and chairs on the lawn as my preference there. The communication, I think the banners is a fantastic idea. In D, with the publicity, where are we? That was the farmers market would be my vote on that one, because I think the opening of outdoor markets and farmers markets has happened now, and that's something that we can push ahead since they've been able to do sooner rather than later. So that would be a good thing to encourage, in my view. I think that's my my list of preferences on first reading of the document, but thank you for putting it together. It's fantastic. The amount of work you've done on this and on the other bits and pieces and on helping Dawlish, I cannot imagine how you're finding time to breathe during the day, let alone put all these together. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. I saw Councillor Taylor had his hand raised, Councillor John Pederick, and then Councillor Lisa Main. So please go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, in no particular order. It's an excellent list, I must say. I completely concur with what members have said about this. In terms of, so in no particular order, I think the 20-mile-an-hour limit through residential areas is a very, very good suggestion. People are dodging into the roadway at randomly to avoid people coming the other direction on the pavement. We can't mark out all the pavements, so there is additional risk. So let's have people slow down. I think everybody wants it. It'll be very sensible, and it'll, you know, just get people to take their foot off the accelerator for that little bit longer. I agree about cycle parking. Yes, it would be good if we had some extra places to tie up your bike. And just zooming straight down to the end, consider funding a local car park cinema event. Yes, a car park, but I'd actually like to get people out of their cars and watching the cinema. Let's have another one on the lawn, as we did for last year. Sorry, Angie. it was brilliant. But yeah, so we have to mark out the grass to 2 meters boxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor John Pederick, I think you were next, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm quite comfortable with all of these options, but the one that I am really opposed to, I'm sorry to say, is the pedestrianisation of the Strand. We've been there before with this. I've seen it mentioned recently on social media what a wonderful thing it would be, but that would mean changing the traffic flow in either High Street or Brunswick to the opposite direction, so vehicles could get out of the town. If you leave the traffic flow as it is, all they can do is come into the town. Getting out of the town means going up Oak Hill and getting out of the town that way. It was something that we considered in great detail a number of years ago before the enhancement of the Strand. And the majority of people that attended the consultations were totally opposed to pedestrianisation of the Strand. If you just think about large vehicles coming into the town, buses or articulated lorries, how on earth are they going to turn around at the top of Queen Street to come down Queen Street, that's from High Street to Queen Street, or come up Brunswick and turn around outside what was the old fire station? It's physically impossible. So that isn't going to work, I'm afraid, in my humble opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Main, did you had your hand up, I think?
Yeah, I did. I think could we postpone this until we've all had chance to look through the paperwork properly? I mean, I've put down in front of me the items I would like to go to, but can we email you in our preferences by, say, lunchtime tomorrow?
Chairman.
Would that be okay? That would give everybody a chance to really look at it.
Chairman, there would be no problem with that if that would be your resolution to delegate authority to myself and Angie in consultation with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. And if members want to feed their supporting points through to us, then we can reply on your behalf to the various pots and authorities. That would be fine.
Okay, thank you. Are councillors happy to go ahead with that as just been suggested? Okay, Councillor Orhood, I can see you're waving. Did you wish to speak?
I had my virtual hand up as well, but anyway. Yes, I think that's a much better idea, to give everyone a chance to look at it further and send in ideas. May I ask, Angie, is it possible to also add any other ideas for whether they're suitable? You know what I'm thinking of. When we're thinking of, for example, the 20-mile-an-hour option, in some places on the continent, the waiters are going across the road to serve extra space. We've got a very wide pavement on the other side, which is virtually unused except by an odd dog or pigeon. And there's ample space along there for all the eating establishments down the Strand to expand and virtually make, their, weather permitting, their covers almost the same as they would be with their outside going, sorry, their inside going outside. And that's something else I would like to see as a possible option.
Yeah, if I may, just in response, I think, yeah, I mean, this is just ideas that have come forward. We've sort of generated and looked at, and they've come from all different places. For example, the 20-mile-an-hour limit through residential areas actually came up from the police, and they've been of various things. So I don't think there's anything to stop us adding extra things potentially to it. I think what I should make clear is, you know, even if you liked everything on the list, you know, we're not able to say that we can do it on our own. We have to work with the DCC and TDC, and they may completely disagree and not decide to do so. Regarding pedestrianisation on the Strand, the reason we had done some initial consultation is we knew how difficult this particular issue was, and hence why there was some discussion, you know, to try and find out from the Chamber of Commerce, who I understand in previous times were completely opposed, to try and get some feedback. Yes, we could accept additional ideas, but I think it has to be narrowed down to have any prioritisation and real pull with people we're going to have to go to.
Yeah, the difference between pedestrianisation, mind you, and maybe a closure once a week or something, that's a big difference. If it was pedestrianised and we lose all those parking spaces, again, that would disenfranchise a great many people who are only able to do local shopping by doing that, and otherwise they go off to Sainsbury's or Morrison's. So it is complicated. And thank you for all this work, and I know that you're working your socks off.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhood. So we had the suggestion then that councillors email their favourites in. Yes, Councillor Prowse, I can see you're waving at me. Please go ahead.
It says parish recovery. Parish is a very large parish. Has anybody thought about the outsides of the parish, the Holcombs, the Cockwoods, the Dawlish Warrens? We are all part of this parish. I banged on about this for more years than I care to think, and I'm hearing again we are coming inwards instead of going outwards. We have a lot of residents in a lot of new homes that people don't particularly like, but they are residents of the parish of Dawlish. Please, can we give them some thought?
Thank you, Councillor Prowse, for your comments. So as was suggested that councillors email into Andrew their options and their favourites and their thoughts, then as you've just said, you could email in your suggestions and thoughts for how we include the rest of the parish in this recovery plan. So all those in favour with emailing your comments in to Andrew by tomorrow, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That's unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you for this discussion, and thank you, Angie and Andrew, for all the hard work. And thank you to Yola for all your hard work and putting all the reports for tonight's meeting together. So I think that concludes everything that's on the agenda. So thank you everybody for joining this virtual meeting, and take care, stay safe, and 2 meters. Okay. Bye. Thank you. Bye.